It's more fun, way more
Yeah.
fun. Randolph, hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are we?
Good. Thank you for having me on your show.
That's absolutely fine. There is a small amount of feedback now coming through as soon as we go live.
Darn it. Okay.
Maybe if I mute yeah, that's fine. Just a quick one for everyone, because I did promise a number of things. I'm just about to do an unboxing, yay, which is fun. As you can see, I'm missing one of the vinyls. If anyone can guess which vinyl it's going to be, given the ones behind me have changed, then just throw a comment down in the live chat, and then there's going to be theoretical points thrown out at some point that mean absolutely nothing. I don't think I've got any feedback now.
You do?
It's good.
Or you don't?
I do not.
Oh, excellent.
I do not. Which is fine. Randolph, we're going to talk to you about a number of different things. So we've got True North Talk, Canadian atheists to talk about. Then we're going to go into a fun little game that I've made. Then go off into a bit more conversation, and then have some Christian atheist memes to go through as well. And then we'll just have some fun at the end.
Okay, sounds great.
Sweet. Frankly, I want to do the unboxing, but I'm just going to introduce you a bit more first, because I think that would be rude not to. You are, as you said, president of the Canadian Atheists.
Yeah, I'm the founding president. We've been running the organization for a few years now, and our goals are some of our goals include trying to change the public perception of atheists and atheism, because there are some people who do promote the wrong idea about them, about us, and just as atheists in general. They'll quite often put negative connotations on or attempt to vilify, and of course none of that's true, because none of that's inherent in atheism. Atheism being just not having any belief in deities, and really nothing other than that. It really is that simple. I regard it as a classification, not even as a position, because a position would require having some kind of assumption or claim that goes along with it, such as a theistic position would be one where somebody believes that they take a position, in a sense, that at least one deity exists. You have the monotheists, or you have the polytheists who believe two or more deities. Then you have at the other end of the spectrum, the prefix anti indicates opposition. So I tend to think that the anti-theist is the one who takes a specific position that no deities actually exist. As an atheist, I simply don't take either position, because and the skeptic in me does this because there's a burden of proof inherent with any kind of position a person takes. So if you're claiming there are no deities, or you're claiming there are one or more deities, then you do have some kind of burden of proof if you want to try to convince somebody else of this. So I don't feel that I can adequately defend the position that there are no deities. So I don't go that far, because I don't have the tools necessary to inspect every corner of the universe and absolutely rule it out. That's very simple and straightforward. It might sound a bit flippant, but when it comes down to a logical consideration, I think it's important to be clear on these things. So, but when it comes to atheists in general, there are atheists who have all sorts of different standards of living, different values when it comes to ethics and morals. And there are people who've come to become atheists because they have a skeptical standpoint. They value skepticism, they've applied it, and they've come to this conclusion. And then there are others who haven't done this at all. So there can actually be reasons and justifications behind being an atheist. I'm saying that that's optional. it's wonderful that people do that because, hey, that's great for logic and skepticism, but I also don't see it as absolutely necessary.
Purist Engine is not Gorillaz. You've got the band slightly wrong. You've got the right country. Look again. So yeah, we are going to go through that a little bit with lots of different logical fallacies. I really like going through logical fallacies.
Sounds great.
And I'll explain a bit later about how this podcast actually started and came to be.
Great.
Yeah. If someone reminds me. You're also going to start doing True North Talk, which is like this
with Neil.
Massive.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without Neil. He's an extremely important part of all this. And yeah, it's True North Talk is going to be a live call-in show, and we've seen how the Atheist Experience does it in the U.S. and down in Texas, and I think they do a phenomenally fantastic job at it. And we'd like to do something very similar here in Canada. So that's kind of where we're at with Neil and I. And so I think it's definitely helpful to have more. I have noticed over the years a number of comments about the Atheist Experience show that the show is not long enough. There aren't enough episodes in the week. So to me, I think this is a really good sign of their success. And a really good testament to it, and a good indication to us that we'd be going into something that would probably be fairly well received, as long as we put on a reasonably good show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they've got what 9-10 shows now, and obviously they're always growing, which is great. I was I got to stumble across the my first live stream of watching secular sexuality as well, and it's something that I don't relate to. I'm a straight white male man. I mean, I'm like,
yeah, me too. I haven't heard of that.
So that's one of the ACAs, and it goes through what you can expect, which is going through different forms of sexuality. I believe, I wasn't watching for too long, they had a like a secular call girl. I think that's the right term. I hope that's the right term for somebody who does various different things over the phone, and that's what they were talking about, which is eye-opening.
Wow, ear-opening because it's on the phone.
Quite. Speaking about opening ears, do you want to open the box? I want to open the box. I want to open the box. This is the most exciting bit of the podcast for me. This is really bad for Neil, who's at work. Hello, Neil, listening in. A lot of parts of this podcast are going to be very visual, and this bit is one of them. Okay, so I'm just going to get on with it. Because this has arrived today, and I've got to be very careful not to show my address. Oh, it's stuck. I mean,
you've got a box there?
I've got a box to open.
That Schrodinger's cat going to come out of that box?
Maybe. I mean, it's both open and closed at the same time. Oh, geez. Oh, I've broken it. No. This is horrible. Because obviously this is the missing vinyl. Has anyone actually guessed what it would be? It's not Gorillaz. I keep telling you, it's not Gorillaz.
Pink Floyd. I'm biased.
It's not Pink Floyd. What?
Oh, darn.
Can anyone recognise the band behind me, or the band?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm also going to commit a cardinal sin for anyone who's collecting vinyl. Does anyone recognise the logo? It's just there. Look there. I don't think anyone has yet. I want to give them about 10 seconds to guess.
Oh, pressure's on.
Do you recognise it at all? Either of those two albums? So we've got Push the Button, Dig Your Own Hole, and Further, which are the 2nd, 5th, and 7th albums we had. Nobody? Okay. Beautiful piece of artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Just about to go up on the wall. This is out today. No Geography by the Chemical Brothers. I've listened to it since midnight, maybe 6 times. As I said, I'm gonna. Oh, hello. What was that?
Somebody's sending me text messages. I'll get it later.
Oh yeah, fantastic. Don't worry about it. As I said, the cardinal sin that I'm going to breach is actually taking the plastic off. I know for a lot of vinyl collectors that is a no-go, but frankly, for 2 reasons. One, it's better to have it on the wall when it hasn't got plastic on it, otherwise it just reflects the light. And the second thing, oh, it's beautiful, is actually just to increase the value of everybody else's vinyl. So I'm really just doing a service for the community. If I can take this off, come on.
Oh, text message from my wife, just sending me a little heart. She does that throughout the day.
No.
She's awesome.
And that's the background.
No Geography.
Very nice.
Chemical Brothers.
It's there's more. Oh, it's all falling out. This probably isn't very good audio for anyone who's not watching, but that's all those are the credits. Don't need to watch that, right? Look at that. Wow.
Destruction.
All this.
Keep.
I have to say, having listened to the track so far, Bango, and especially No Geography, there's always a track that they put on the albums, which is just this like euphoric track, which is just so beautiful in so many ways, like Close Your Eyes or Radiate or ones like that. And No Geography is definitely one to listen out for. Good. Now that I've taken that vinyl out, oh god, this is only going to take another like 4 hours. Don't worry. I'm going to end up putting this in a little frame. While I ask you some more questions, if you can still hear me. Oh, this might take a while. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Mark. Yes, you can still buy vinyl records. What are you on about?
Actually,
I've been doing this whole time.
Here in Canada, the sales of vinyl records have been on the rise over the last 5 to 10 years.
Oh yeah, same. I think it's the same everywhere.
Yeah,
it's
they're coming back, which is great. Personally, I'd like to see 8-track cassettes come back, but I think vinyl has better prospects.
Absolutely. I just a small piece of information as well. I mean, it's completely irrelevant. The frames I actually use, I can't remember where I get them from, but they're only just like a cheap little plastic one. Probably available everywhere, very cheaply if people are interested in vinyl. I don't know if you're a particular music mogul, as it were.
Oh, for me, I enjoy more the music. Throughout my life, mostly when I was younger, I didn't really pay any attention to the names of the artists, or very often not even the names of the songs. So over time, I've been recovering from that by getting to know those things better. But I'm not as keenly into it as you appear to be, which I think is great. It's important to have hobbies.
It is rather. I don't know if can you hear me? Sorry, I went muted for a second. Camera wasn't switching. Right, this is the most difficult bit. I hope I'm making coherent sense here. This is it's the actual trying to get it on the wall, which is difficult to line up. Oh, look at that! Perfect. Oh
hey. No, that's looking good.
Oh god, this is, as I said, this is the most difficult bit. It's like getting it on the hooks, right? Also, oh god, I'm kicking the plug.
That's great. So, do you have plans for the center row, the center column? Do you have plans for that?
For this, no. This bit is normally it's just been my face. And otherwise I'm sort of a bit too in the way. Hence, I sometimes swing around like this, and then you look at this, and then I swing around and I'm on the iPad and you look at this. I will say, for anyone who is wondering, I do sometimes throw out some very subtle references in some of the vinyl I've used in some of the podcasts. I'm not trying to just encourage people just to watch all previous podcasts just to try and get more view time, but there are some moments where it's just been like reference. So look out for that.
All right,
that was fun.
That's a great idea. By the way,
where are we going with that? We were about to go on to, and we talked about True Talk, didn't we?
About
True
which?
North.
Sorry, you faded out.
True North Talk. True North Talk with Neil.
Oh yeah. So yeah, when I talked with Neil about it, because this is something I've wanted to do for a while, and I've talked with other people over the years, and people are sort of interested, but they're quite busy with a lot of things, and so am I. And then so things never really came together. Prior to meeting Neil, probably about 5 or 10 years before that, I even looked at doing it as a public cable television show on the local TV. But we have here something called the CRTC, which is our regulatory body for telecommunications, and they cover television as well. They have about a 27-page document filled with fine print of all these different rules and regulations that a person must adhere to when running any kind of television program. So community television ended up looking like it wasn't going to be the right solution for us, because one of the rules was preventing any obscene material from being discussed on the air. And we have national standards on this, so I understand that. It's unfortunately, when you have a live call-in show, you end up having to censor a lot of stuff on the fly, and it becomes quite a big job. And and then you've got a big delay in there with things, and there's certain topics you can't talk about. Political correctness seemed to factor in quite a bit. So YouTube was the way to go. YouTube doesn't have all these restrictions. They're not so draconian.
I think that's the problem. It's the back and forth between regulation and not regulation. Say, if the EU Article 13/17 is going to affect the use of memes and that sort of thing, like the ones we're going to be showing in a minute, then there's going to inevitably people will start to just go to a platform where they can do it. In the same way, prohibition doesn't work for anything. It doesn't work for alcohol. It doesn't work for arguably cannabis and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. So anyway, when I talked with Neil about it, his immediate reaction was, "Hell yes." You know how Neil talks. And This was wonderful. He's just such a positive attitude about it. So, and then talking with him further, he's saying that for quite a long time, he's been wanting to do something like this as well. So, we both have had the interest in doing this for a long time, and we're both enthusiastic about it. So, this looks like we're the right people for this in a way. And, in the future, we could even have other guests on to participate in the hosting. But I think initially we'll just start out with just focusing on and getting as many calls in as possible. I like the way the atheist experience makes somewhat of a priority on the calls from religious people, because you end up with a lot of very interesting perspectives and conversations, and some of them are completely out to lunch, but then there's others who actually bring up reasonable questions and seem to be quite genuinely interested in what's going on. It's a telemarketer calling. Sorry about that.
It doesn't really bother me.
Okay.
We'd have them live on air. We could troll them. Anyone in the comments, quickly, just throw some comments down. What could we ask them? Quick. Who should we pretend to be? Hello, this is Satan.
I just reading the other day that what some people are doing to discourage the telemarketers from calling, with quite a bit of success, is to go into the horrific details of their health problems.
I did see this, yeah.
But you saw it too, yeah. I thought, wow. I really don't want to remember anything like that. I broke my toe once, and but fortunately I didn't need surgery. But like, oh boy, I bet some people have some pretty graphic things to tell about their surgeries.
I know. When I was staying in America for a little bit, working there was at least one of the host mums that would pretend to be Mexican, and they would instantly hang up because they couldn't speak Spanish.
There you go. Yeah,
you can't do that in Canada. Well, maybe you could. You could have
somebody
someone
online. I try to remember the name of it. He trolls the telemarketers. Sometimes he gets two of them on the same phone call, and they end up talking to each other, and they end up just hating each other, and they just get so mad at each other. It's like they think they're, and then finally he breaks into the conversation and says, "Do you realize you called each other? It's actually me who's arranged this." And then they continue to be mad at each other. Wow. I don't know.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I did get it. My notes slightly mixed up, but what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just skip to something else. I've got to try and get my notes together for my next bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you choose. Actually, would you like to start with the Christian memes, or would you like to go into a logical fallacies game?
You said you like logical fallacies, so why don't we go with that? I must give you a caveat up front. I don't profess to be an expert on logical fallacies, but I certainly do find them interesting.
Oh, same. Yeah, I mean, I do like trying to point out little bits now and then, because once you know a few and you have enough of those moments where you have a like, what the fuck reaction, where you just you don't quite know what to say, and then because by the rules of their engagement, if you don't respond within 2 seconds, they declare victory. And
well, there's two authors. There's two authors I highly recommend for anybody who's interested in this stuff and wanting to improve their debating skills. One of them, my favorites, is Arthur Schopenhauer. He published, I believe it was in the 1800s, a book called The Art of Controversy. And in there, he gets into debate tactics that are used and whatnot. And I find a lot of that still quite valuable today. Another one is to augment that very nicely, I find, is Dr. Peter Burgosian's book, A Manual for Creating Atheists. As I understand it, that was originally going to be a book about epistemology. But apparently the book publisher didn't think that would sell very many books, and they were probably right. So they gave it a much more appealing name, Manual for Creating Atheists. And of course, when I saw it in the bookstore, I bought it. But when I heard Peter describing that at some recent podcast after buying the book, I thought, yeah, he's right. If it was about epistemology, I probably would have just passed by it. But it's a very good book, too, because he's talking about understanding things better. And, there's a lot of value in doubting things. Like my wife and I, we've taught our kids to embrace doubt as an ally, an intellectual ally. It's a very important thing, I think, for survival, whereas there are a lot of people who are trying to indoctrinate other people, such as in religions, who talk about doubt as a bad thing. So there seems to be a general wrong attitude there. One of the things that Dr. Burgosian promotes as well is the willingness to admit when you don't know something. It's a wonderful thing, I think, to teach our children, too, because our kids are willing to honestly say if they don't know something, and it actually does wonders for their self-confidence, I've found. Whereas a lot of people are just not comfortable with saying I don't know, and so there seems to be a great appeal for this default position that a deity is to credit for everything, and there you go. There's a fallacy right there. So maybe you can name that fallacy.
We can go into all manner of contradictions within religion. Yeah. I mean, I'm here for however long this earpiece lasts, which is like 2.5 3 hours.
Sure.
If you're up for it, we would have enough content for sure.
Well, as long as people aren't dropping like flies and losing interest, sure.
It's always the danger within a live stream to say how long you're going on for. Either you're going to go on for too long, or you're just about to end, and people are just they cut out at that point. We'll go on for however long we stay interesting for. I do have a game, a logical fallacies game I come up with. So the actual story of some of these particular visuals that you're going to get to see is that I was originally going to write a book, and I was going to end up interviewing various different atheists from different backgrounds, and that way I would end up having like enough to do some sort of, I don't know, something to do with epistemology in the end, which is, I didn't know the term at the time. This maybe was possibly this time last year. And then I thought, well, I'm going to have to make lots of notes, and I'm going to have to record them. How am I going to record them? I'm going to record them like a dictaphone. And then I thought, well, why don't I just do a live chat? And then I'll put it on YouTube. And hey, we've got a podcast. So hence why David Fitzgerald was the first guest. I was never going to be so bold as to ask someone of his stature to be on first.
And here you are now, up to 42 episodes. And here you are now, up to 42 episodes.
This is DRP 42, yeah. I know, because Randolph requested 42, and hopefully you'll accept my invite to come back on DRP 142, etc.
Sure, why not? Yeah,
I've got you penciled in. I'll add the links now onto my page. So the way this works, when I was writing the book, I came up with various symbols to represent a particular logical fallacy. It's something similar to what Rationality Rules actually does on his videos.
That's interesting.
And they're quite good quality. I'm going to just quickly change my camera.
Having symbols to represent the different fallacies is quite a neat idea, actually.
It goes with the sort of emoji style of, there we go.
Oh, I'm thinking Chinese right away. They have one character per word, although some words are combinations of characters. So, you know,
absolutely.
I'm expecting you're probably going to have some kind of imagery that matches the fallacy in some way.
Sure. So,
which Chinese does that too.
I do admire the Chinese language for that reason. As you can also see, the new artwork is being unveiled throughout the weekend. Let us know what you think of the burning sun.
I like it.
I love it. I think that some of the new thumbnails that are being put onto the videos look
bluish white one as well.
I do not. I'm going to possibly just put that into negative tone and try and see what it looks like. Just mess around with it a little bit, maybe.
Should be fairly easy to do that with Photoshop, anyway.
If anyone's wondering as well, I use pixlr.com, so pixlr.com, and that's a free version, but I don't think it can do as much as Photoshop. But anyway, what we're going to do, we've got a little interactive game. Everyone in the comments and who's watching this video back can take part and try and guess the logical fallacy quicker than Randolph. Okay? There's going to be...
Oh boy. I'll do my best. Like I say, I'm not an expert in fallacies, but I'll try my best.
All right. So we've got 11 of them. I've got a little practice one as well. So the first one, if I were to show you that, what do you think is the logical fallacy?
That's circular logic.
Oosh, very easy one. They will get harder.
Okay.
We're going to try and
but that's a good image
quickly. I think, yeah. All of these images were hand drawn on a whiteboard. initially.
Oh, it looks great.
I don't know if you can probably tell that, but there's a lot of editing that's been done. So we've got another 10. We're going to try and get a speed round. For anyone who's in the comments, I'm just going to get the stream up as well and see if you can join in. Are we ready? Oh, Randolph.
I'm ready anytime.
You ready? Okay, sorry.
I thought you were asking the people viewing.
No, that's okay. What do you think this one is?
Well, it looks like somebody's picked some cherries.
So what would be the fallacy?
The cherry picking. Oh,
Oosh.
I said they picked some cherries, right? I think you should add a leaf to that one.
Oh, maybe, probably. I just
like to see a leaf on it. That's just me. Bandwagon fallacy?
Easy one. Bandwagon. I don't think the viewers actually got to see that one. Next.
Yeah, so there's something fishy here with this one. Let me see. Yeah, I'm at a bit of a loss here for this one. Sorry, I see the fish.
Anyone in the comments? Oh, can himself. Yes, hashtag Keithan, you've got it.
Oh, the red herring. Oh, of course, it's red.
Oh,
I don't know my fish.
Herring.
That's the problem. Very, very good.
I was wondering whether. Hey, you got a little sound. I mean, that's your text, but you got a little reward sound anyway from yourself.
That's a sound I'm trying to figure out how to turn off. Sorry about that.
It's quite all right.
Oh, okay. So this is the bifurcation or the false dilemma, the black and white.
Yes. So either the black and white fallacy or the false dichotomy or something along those lines.
Bifurcation fallacy, limited to the scope to 2 options.
Excellent. Perfect.
Is this a straw man?
I think so. Can I just take a second just to say how difficult this was to get right?
Wow, is he got like the Iron Man energy source in the center there? Like what is that?
Yeah, that's a little target.
Okay.
That was being targeted with a straw man. They are getting slightly trickier.
Okay, so there's some kind of a pyramid here.
I'm just going to switch to my screen permanently, just so we're not going backwards and forwards as well.
Okay.
Anyone help Randolph out in the comments?
Yeah, I'm seeing a pyramid.
So what do you have within a pyramid of different people?
Well, we've already covered the bandwagon fallacy. So this is obviously not the bandwagon fallacy. Oh boy. Like I say, I'm not an expert on fallacies, but I think this is improving my game there.
Oosh, I think Great Dane's got it.
Oh, authority. Okay. Yeah, chain of command almost.
Excellent. It's the appeal to authority. So you can see, especially I'll have to describe some of these a bit more for those of you who are just listening.
Right. It's trickier. Yeah.
We've got a pyramid, and there's different stages of the pyramid, and the one at the top is the one that's being held as the authority. And next, this one, I admit, is quite difficult.
Oh boy. It looks like a floating preacher who's saying something and to his disciples or whoever it is who's following him.
Very good. So you know that he is standing on a podium of some sort, and they're the one that's talking. So the preaching is the word. Who are they preaching to?
Preaching to the choir. Okay.
Yay! I mean, I could have done a bit more on the choir, but it's trying to simplify.
I don't really think of preaching to the choir as a fallacy, though. But this is a good image for it. But I think if you're if those 3 people there are kind of holding hymn books, or there's a couple of musical notes around them, that would make it clear that they're a choir. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, yeah, I agree. Don't worry. These probably will never get used again.
That's a nice drawing, though. I like the drawings.
Okay, this one slightly interesting. So what would we associate this particular face with?
Well, somebody who's dead.
Okay, so somebody has been attacked.
Oh, okay. Well, that looks like death to me. Somebody's dead. They have the X's for the eyes.
Yeah, so I've got the next through the eyes and the tongue hanging out. But it's less to do with death and more about the fact that they've been attacked.
Oh, so like, are you thinking like an ad hominem attack?
Excellent. Boom. So the ad hominem was obviously Latin for ad human, homonym, Homo sapien, hominid. So I think it's a family on the taxonomic ranking. So yeah,
that
one's a personal nature. This one's a face, and it's got a question mark as the face.
Okay. So, I don't know. Which is probably a good response to this one.
It is a very good response to this one.
Yeah.
It epitomizes the image entirely, your reaction.
Okay. So I'm on the right track, but it's paralleled.
Anyone in the comments? Yep. I think Elias Fake Name's got it.
Oh, is it begging the question?
Doc Fearsom's a good one as well. A lot of these fallacies do go by different names, so you would end up. I don't actually know which one begging the question is, but I put it down as a personal incredulity. I don't know if they're the same thing, but it's basically ignorance, the argument from ignorance.
Okay. Well, the problem with asking a question is it doesn't necessarily mean that the person themselves are ignorant, though. But yeah, it does. Ignorance does fit there. Begging the question. You need something begging.
Yeah, I probably would put somebody on their knees begging or something if it was begging the question. I think this is the last one.
Some kind of blockage?
So you've got a road and then you've got a cul-de-sac going off of it.
What is this one? Huh. Oh boy. This is a nice symbol.
That's the last one. So, yeah, I really like it too.
Yeah.
I don't have that much red pen left.
Have to get some more pens then. I don't know the answer to this one. I'm at a loss for it.
Okay, so what is a cul-de-sac?
Well, it's a place where we can turn around.
Okay, so you have.
Where we have to turn around.
Yeah. So what do you have to do? Well, sorry. What can't you do?
You're unable to enter into the cul-de-sac. You're limited here. You're blocked.
Okay, so you could go forwards, but you can't.
I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank here. I've got some kind of mental block on this.
Okay, I don't know whether this is too obvious or whether it's just a really hard one. I'll give the people in the comments maybe about 10 seconds more.
Oh, yeah. It's having fun. Dead end somebody's put.
Yep, so you can't. You can go a certain amount, but you can't go the whole way.
Huh. I'm not familiar with that one. Okay.
So there's road, there's no road.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the dead end fallacy. That's
okay.
a new one.
I don't know what the dead end fallacy is either.
But neither do I. I just see someone writing dead end, and you seem to be okay with that. So, okay.
One final clue: they did appear on the podcast. They have a channel by this name. If you recognize any channels within the atheist YouTube community that are named after a logical fallacy.
The non sequitur?
Boosh! Okay. I don't know how good an image that is for the non sequitur, but it
not at all.
In Latin, it's a bit obscure. It's like a
this one looks more like a blockage rather than going off on a tangent.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, this
so
was
that one.
This last one was the hardest, I would say. Yeah. So you've had the non sequitur people on. I had no idea.
Oh yeah. So I had already booked Kyle on like maybe a couple of weeks earlier, and those tweets are out there. They're public, by the way. I'm just going to switch my camera back. This is
I know that
in person with me.
I know of Steve and Shannon who are involved, and I didn't know there was a Kyle as well. Okay. I don't know who all's involved in that one. So.
Yeah, so Kyle, I think it's Kyle's channel, and then Steve comes along as well with it, and then they get guest appearances now and again from various people like Shannon. So what I was going to say was the reason that they were on was to just have a normal chat like this, become relatable in some sort of way, and then between me booking them and the actual podcast, they had a particular debate on slavery, which then transpired into a discussion between two people who agreed to have an ethno-state, which is segregation of black and white people. And so they had two guests on that agreed with each other on this particular controversial topic, and people felt they had either done this on purpose or they were doing it in order to try and get like some sort of dumpster fire going, trying to get subscribers by being more provocative and that sort of thing. So the actual podcast I have with Carl, which is my longest one at like 3.5 hours, we ended up for about the first 2.5-ish hours, we were just talking about the channel, moderators, comments, every single little part of that particular controversy and the fallout from it, the comments that Scientist Mel received, and various different things that have happened since
Sorry, what
torn people apart a bit.
What kind of comments does Scientist Mel?
The specific comments were of a rape nature.
Oh, like they're harassing her?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
But it wasn't from non-sequitur, it was from people that were in the comments that they argue would not have been in the comments had they not gone through with this particular sort of debate.
I think it's I wouldn't blame the non sequitur show for that, but I do think that the moderator stepping in when you're expecting to have a debate and then both sides are agreeing on it, it's probably a good time to put a stop to it and say, look, we'll bring you two guys back when we have some people who are opponents to you and continue the show there. Probably is what they should have done. That'd be my guess from what you're telling me. That's what
it was. I mean, it turned into a hugely complex issue. Hence the length of the podcast itself and the planning that had to go into it. We were going to end up doing it on the Monday, and I can safely say if Kyle wasn't in this relatively minor car crash on that Monday, then the podcast itself would have been a car crash because I would not have been prepared. And so he came back on the Wednesday instead, and I just spent that whole 2 days planning questions, getting them in the right order, making sure that I covered all bases, making sure I was fair to both sides of the argument. And I hope that comes through.
So what was his response to people suspecting that they arranged that on purpose or something?
Well, the one word I haven't used is as #Heathen points out, is the word nationalist, because they're both nationalists, but for different reasons.
Okay.
Obviously, they agreed with each other to segregate America into black area, white area, and it's like,
which is ridiculous.
Not something. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just that's cruel to do that. You know, it's just inhumane. Yeah.
Yep, agreed. It's.
We're supposed to be past all that stuff now in 2019. Now it's like we should have been past that a long time ago.
Well, yeah. I mean, we went over various different topics, including how guests are vetted for the non-sec, their motivations, their intentions, moderators. I talked about one thing that came from it was that I pointed out the S.J. Thompson comments. I don't know if you saw them about Squirsifier.
That was deplorable. I even wrote to her that I'm willing to have a conversation with her about that, to examine the various moral and ethical aspects of that, and she hasn't responded to me. So, you know, ball's in her court. It's up to her if she wants to or not. But that was that was disappointing when she's saying the person's going to go to burn in hell or something. It's just totally inappropriate when somebody just lost a loved one. You know, it's just no. It's very condescending and just an awful thing to say. I've lost complete respect for her because of that. Actually, I generally go forward in life with assuming that everybody's deserving of a basic modicum of respect, and then it's up to them to, based on the way they behave or whatever, the things they do, to gain more or to lose it. You know, so generally how I go. So with her, you know, just like anybody else, she's just another person. But when I saw that, I thought, no, this is wrong.
Yeah, the specific issue I brought up was not just the messages that she stood by and she didn't back down from. She doubled down on, which Kyle had responded that in exactly the same way you just did. And then I asked a supplementary question, which is that she is to this day still a moderator for the channel, and obviously the controversy was partly to do with the job of the moderators in the live chat during such a stream. So I posed the question, should she still be a moderator? And I mean that in a as sincere way as I can. I'm not pointing the finger and saying she should or she shouldn't. It's their channel, and that's what, you know, they are allowed to do whatever they like. But I have been blocked by SJ since despite having never talked to her at all. So it's just, you know, what can you do?
One of the things I dislike about the way Twitter and other social networks block users is implement the blocking is that the blocking works both ways. And I think that's not the right way to do it, because people lose a lot of context in conversations. To me, what it should be is, if I don't block anybody, but or I haven't so far, but if I was to block somebody, they should still be able to see what I write. I just don't see what they write. It should just be a one-way thing if I'm blocking them. And then when I'm writing stuff, it should be notifying them somehow that you're blocked by this user, so that the person knows that I'm blocking them from seeing their stuff, but they can still see what I'm writing. To me, that would be a better way to do it. But instead, they just block both ways. And I think that that detracts from the overall quality of the social networks, because it interferes with people being able to communicate and comment on things.
Sure, I can understand why they would do it. If I were in a situation where, let's say, I was in a particularly vulnerable situation and there were particular people that were stalking me, for example, being able to block them so that from my perspective, I can't see them, but still knowing that they can see me is, like, it could be quite jarring, I guess, from that perspective.
Perhaps what I should revise this now, because I think you've raised a very interesting point, a very good one, that shows that I wasn't considering something. In other words, my view wasn't entirely right. Perhaps what needs to happen is there be a block feature and an ignore feature, so that that person can choose which of the two. That would probably be the best solution right there.
I guess that's, yeah, the block and the mute
Ignore
options are probably that
then people can
attempt.
Yeah. They can ignore, or they can block both ways. Probably be a better way to do it, and then people have better control over what goes on. Yeah, that seems like a better way to go about it.
I did want to talk to you about the critical thinking aspect, because you brought it up.
Oh yeah.
And we just went on from logical fallacies into a little tangent, but we'll try and go.
So I try to be a good. I try to be the best I possibly can at critical thinking, but I'm not an expert in it. I would like to be, but I'm not. I don't consider myself to be at this point, but I'll certainly do the best I can here.
Sure. I'm quite interested in how people go about becoming more critical. I think we all are, and that sort of epistemology aspect to the atheist YouTube community that we see from different sources. I was watching a video earlier, and I'll throw a shout out to GM Skeptic, because he's genetically modified skeptic. It's great, as I'm sure most people would agree.
Top of the line. Another one would be Essence of Thought, Peter Thurston. Both of them are very good at applying skepticism, I've noticed.
I did start watching Essence of Thought earlier, and their response videos to rationality rules when it comes to transgender athletes.
Oh, he's
just trying to find out.
I've only seen a couple of his videos, but I find he's excellent. Yeah, I really like his content as well. So critical thinking, again, I'll recommend the same book by Peter Burgosian, A Manual for Creating Atheists, because he gets right into that stuff in that book, and he gets into it very, very well. One of the things he's emphasizing is that the concept of doxastic openness or doxastic closure, which are opposites, which basically being open to changing your view. So he talked about in a lecture to Intel a while ago about this stuff. He described that there are two major components to critical thinking. There's the skill set component, which I think most people are probably familiar with. And there's also the attitudinal component, which is if you're presented with credible information, are you willing to change your view? That's the attitudinal side of it. And that's something that seems to be missed a lot. A lot of people will apply critical thinking skills, but then they'll just go back to the way they were without actually committing to updating their views on things. And this can be quite hard for people, I think, because, you know, there's something you've believed for a long time and then you find you're wrong. And one of the examples he gave was his kid was going outside, and so he told his kid, quick, get your jacket on before you go outside. You don't want to catch a cold. And his wife, who's apparently a professor in medicine or something, says, no, he won't. And he said, yes, he will. No, he won't. So they disagreed. And so he's ready to go online and look it up. And what do you know? She's right. And so what he was reflecting on with that is, what was his attitude? His attitude was to just go along and insist he's right, instead of asking, well, how am I wrong? Maybe I do need to relook at this thing. When it's coming from somebody who's got some credibility in a certain area, I think it's worth considering their point of view on it, definitely, at the very least. So, you know, we've tried to instill this attitude with our children as well, and I think we've done pretty good. And they question everything, as children normally do. We've got one in elementary school and one in high school, two daughters, and they've even questioned some of the things that my wife and I have said, and we've found that we've had to correct our views on certain things because, yeah, you know, they asked a question that we never asked before, and it turned out, yeah, we were assuming simple little things. Another example Dr. Burgosian gave in that lecture was of going down a hill and using the brakes, tapping the brakes again and again. And his friend, who's really good with mechanics, is asking, what are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And he's saying, oh, to save the brakes. He says, it doesn't save the brakes. So all this time he's thinking it saves the brakes by doing this. And his friend explained to him why it doesn't. So yeah, it's important. I think one of the best things a person can do to become toward better at critical thinking is questioning their own views and being open to other people questioning them. So it's something that that I think we're in a society that we generally aren't taught to do this. So yeah, if you want to be really good at applying skepticism, practicing skepticism, then it's imperative that you apply it impartially, and that means on your own ideas as well.
Just a quick one in the comments as well. Throw that link down in the comments for the vinyl casing, if I can just remember to actually do that. Because yeah, I don't know if is it only mods that can tag me and stuff. I wasn't aware of that. I thought everyone could just tag me.
They just have to start with the @ sign and type the first few letters of your name.
Yeah, throughout the podcast, if you do have questions for Randolph, it's at Worley DR podcast, and I've kept it at that. I've thought about shortening it to just DRP, but then I might get spammed by lots of stuff, and then when people come onto the home page and it just says DRP everywhere, nobody knows that it's a podcast. So I try and keep it as complicated as I can. I did want to just quickly ask you as well. You brought up the issue of teaching children critically how to think, and that will go into different education systems around the world as well. What's it actually like in Canada?
Okay, so I can speak for British Columbia specifically, which is the westmost province of Canada. So we'll just call it BC. Most people here just refer to it as BC rather than British Columbia. But our public school system here a few years ago increased the critical thinking content in the educational materials, and they've been putting more and more into that. I've noticed very interestingly that English teachers are particularly into teaching people how to spot fake news and things like that, and try to determine what's real. And you know, it may seem like an unintuitive surprise to a lot of people. And at first I thought, wow, an English teacher doing this, I would expect that more to be in the realm of logic or something with math or something else. But when I think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense, because English is learning reading and writing and also comprehension. And part of learning comprehension is a valuable skill for that, I'm thinking now, is being able to think critically about what you're comprehending. And not just understanding it, but actually process it in a critical way and question, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this true? Could this be better? Could this be worse? Could this be some other, is there some other aspect that's been overlooked on this? Things like that.
Interesting. I want to just do something very quickly. Ask you something quickly, and then we'll go into the Christian atheist memes.
Oh, and by the way, hi Neil. Hello to Neil.
Hello Neil. Yes, I don't know if he's joined late. We're just bitching about him for about an hour, if you have.
I just noticed him on there saying hello to everyone. So.
Oh, I apologize in advance. I sometimes pick up on information here and there, and I don't. There's no way of verifying it unless I actually just say it. Is it right in saying that you said you were autistic?
So I wasn't ever formally tested, but I am apparently, well, my mom says I am, my dad doesn't seem to remember it, but I am on the autism spectrum in a significant way, but I'm considered kind of a minor case, more in the Asperger's area, which is a definition that's been vandalized and torn apart for...
Oh, Asperger's, sorry.
Yeah, Asperger's is part of the autism family, and it's... a lot of it cleared up for me when I guess I was around age 12, probably. And I noticed that I was getting more comfortable in social situations at that point, and better at communicating with people. But then other things I could do, I can no longer do. Like, for example, I'd have a 12,000 piece puzzle. My psychologist would put it on. I was seeing a psychologist, a couple of different ones. The last one was the only good one, but I saw him, and he'd have this 12,000 piece puzzle dumped on his table, and I would solve it before the end of the session, because I can remember that I could see all the pieces, and I knew immediately, instinctively, where they go. And so, like, I wouldn't even need to put pieces side by side and figure it out like I have to now. I'd immediately know that goes there, and there's nothing around them, and then they all just kind of fill in like a bunch of random dots filling in a picture on a screen. I don't know if you've seen that effect. And so there was some kind of things like that I could do. I was able to remember in great detail pretty much everywhere I went. Not a photographic memory, but it was getting on to that. But when it came to communication skills as a kid, I was probably a lot quieter than Michael Corleone from The Godfather. So it's his quietness, the way he's presented that character kind of reminds me of that. That's the only reason I mention it, not because of any of the criminal stuff he does in that show. So I can remember in school, I went through a number of different elementary schools, and there were teachers who were supposedly experts who would say things like, "Oh, he's a slow learner," or whatever. The problem for me was verbalizing. And then on top of that, I had, to this day, it still has kind of a lesser effect than before, 2 forms of dyslexia, one for reading and one for hearing. So that made it very difficult in school. I'd be, for example, at the front of the class, one of the front rows, trying to listen to the teacher. Then some kids in the back row, they start whispering, and then everything coming out of the teacher's mouth just sounds like gibberish, sometimes like a Russian language almost. And so it made it very difficult for me, because that's one of the side effects of the auditory processing dysfunction, or the dyslexia for the hearing that I have. Today, I'm a lot better at it, I think, because my brain's adapted to coping with it and working with it, but it can still be a problem for me sometimes. And then reading, I find, has really improved with computers. It made a big difference for me, because on the computers, the effect would blink and disappear, and it's almost never there. And so what I think's going on is, under a light that's flashing rapidly that people don't really notice, like a fluorescent light, the effect of the dyslexia, it disappears from me. It's like something resets in the brain. It's different for everybody, I think. So because I've talked to a few people with dyslexia who have the same thing, but a lot don't. It works differently. It seems to be a part of neuroscience, I think, that is not probably all that well understood yet. There's probably still quite a long way to go. We understand a lot more today than we did 20 years, 30, 40 years ago, but I think there's probably still a lot more to be learned.
Yeah, just quickly, I found that link for Great Down to for the vinyl frames. That's thrown into the comments. I was interested in knowing how that links to critical thinking, and especially how to teach it to children that might have these do we call them disabilities? These alternative abilities?
I jokingly refer to it as it's something like the Force in Star Wars. We all have it, but we just haven't figured out how to use it. But seriously, I think, like, I can remember back with autism, there's a misunderstanding that autistic people all think in a certain way. They're all strong on logic, because of the movie Rain Man kind of gives an impression about this stuff. And then everybody seems to assume, oh, you can remember all the phone numbers in a phone book. Yeah, I'm good at remembering phone numbers, but not like Rain Man, not even close. I wouldn't even compare. But I don't use the address book on my phone. I have all the numbers up here, but it's I have, but nonetheless, it's there's different interests and different levels of intelligence. Autism is just another characteristic. It's a big one, because it really has a major impact on people's lives. But just like with anybody, I think what's important is finding what method of learning works best for them, or methods. Hopefully there's more than one, and usually I think there are, and then working with it that way. And our school system seems to be trying to work in that direction as well, because even people without autism still have different learning styles. Some people are more visual learners. Some people are more auditory. They hear things and they can remember it better. Others have to actually have hands-on experience with it, and then some don't. The hands-on doesn't really give them any benefits. So it's really more for teaching people. It's just a matter of finding what works really well for them. And I think as a parent, it's one of our jobs as a parent is to figure out what works best for our kids for learning. Some kids need more playtime. Other kids need more social time. Other kids need more time on their own to do things and whatever. Some kids, like our youngest, she likes to go on and research scientific topics, and she's both of our kids, I put a periodic table of the elements on their wall by their beds, so at nighttime they see it. And I found the kids chart for this and put it up. It's a very nicely drawn cartoon, and it kind of shows each element and also a couple of things that they're for, and the pictures relate to that. So when the oldest got to high school, she, in the chemistry class, the periodic table introduction was easy for her, but most of the kids hadn't been introduced to it, so they struggled with it. The youngest, she of course asked about this stuff too. She's picked not one favorite element, but two. Most people only pick one favorite element if they pick any at all. And so, and then so with part of the critical thinking teaching, people would say, how can you have two elements? And then her response is, why should a person be limited just to one? So, children are natural scientists and natural philosophers. And I think one of the problems I see with a lot of parents, well, not a lot, but some anyway, is that they'll push their kids to do certain things and do really well academically, even though the kids don't want to do it. And that can be problematic, because if your kids don't want to study a certain subject, chances are they're probably not going to be as good at it as they will be at something that genuinely interests them. So our older daughter is interested in fine arts, and she's going to go into animation, hopefully, and then when she's finished high school. And then the younger one is interested in the sciences, completely different interests. And whatever it is they do, we want to support them and help them get there. And, one of the most important piece of advice I can give to parents is, if you notice that your child is interested in something, like a particular subject, be it science or art or music or something else, whatever it is, flood them with the information on it when they're interested. They will absorb it like a sponge usually, and it will be probably one of the greatest benefits to them. And that's probably a shortcut to learning, to helping them learn. And then you can watch how they process that information. If they choose to read, or they choose to do hands-on experience, or whatever they do, you can start to get some insight into what learning style works best for them, because they'll usually pick the learning style that works best for them. It's the easiest for them. So if you can find the easiest way for them to learn this stuff, then you're doing them a big favor for their future.
Great, awesome. I wanted to quickly go on to the Christian memes, because they are quite fun. Sometimes they... I'm going to let you always respond first, because it's I've already seen them. I haven't got too many. I think I've got about 5 or 6. So I'm just going to quickly change my camera again. And what we're going to do is go back to the iPad and find that we have the first one, which is...
by the way, I think I see some commentary about learning and whatnot. So maybe we can go back and revisit that later after this. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you do have any comments, it's at Worley DR podcast, and then I'll get towards them soon after this, really. This is the first one. If I could just read this out for those who are listening. There's 2 sides of exactly the same quote. The first one says, atheism, The belief that there was nothing and nothing happened to nothing, and then nothing magically exploded for no reason, creating everything, and then a bunch of everything magically rearranged itself for no reason whatsoever into self-replicating bits, which then turned into dinosaurs. Makes perfect sense. And then it has exactly the same quote on the other side. It's just changed the word atheism for stupidity.
Oh, and at the end it has an insult, go screw yourself or something like that.
Yeah, it does. But
okay. Yeah, so this is there's a whole set of assumptions being made here. The biggest one is the biggest problem with it is that whoever wrote it is assuming that there's more to atheism than what it really is. There's some references there being made in a very extremely casual way to scientific ideas, such as how the universe began, and to say that it came from nothing, I don't think that it really goes that far. Throwing the word in magically exploded for no reason. These things are hilarious. Whoever wrote this, they have a sense of humor. Unfortunately, it's not my favorite kind of humor, but it is an attempt at labeling atheism as stupid. And it mischaracterizes quite purposely atheism as making those claims. I've noticed that a lot of people in the scientific community are not believing in deities. They don't follow a religion, or if they do, they only do it to appease their families. But they can't say it publicly, of course, because that could get them they cause some problems with their family. It's understandable. People don't want to have a lot of family problems, and everyone's situation is different. They have to decide for themselves what to do there. But so there's this assumption hidden in this, I think, that scientists are all atheists and scientists are making these stupid claims. And so therefore atheism is stupid. So it doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical, but the sarcasm at the end is crazy. There's a tendency I notice among a lot of these angry theists who seem to be very focused on trying to vilify atheists and try to misrepresent atheism. And they'll say stuff they'll say all sorts of crazy things about. They'll assume that they'll conflate science and atheism, and they'll ask atheists questions about science. Scientific questions are usually better you can get a more meaningful answer from somebody who specializes in the area of science that they're asking about. Somebody here's talking about they're going from astrophysics and then into dinosaurs and evolution and paleontology and things like that. And they're covering a whole bunch of different areas of science with that statement. And I think for myself, I would prefer to find out from people who actually know things in these fields, because they have expertise in this for whatever reason, through education, through self-study, or for whatever they have this knowledge in this area, would be, I think, the more appropriate people to ask. And I think it doesn't really matter if those scientists are religious or if they're atheists. What's important is that they can articulate accurate answers about the question in response to the questions people have about these things. So saying that everything came from nothing is, of course, a problematic claim, because from the standpoint of critical thinking, we don't really know if we came from absolutely nothing. We don't know what's happened before the Big Bang or multiple Big Bangs, as seems to be the revised theory, as I understand it. So I hope that's helpful insight on this one.
Comprehensive. Go into as much detail as you like, by the way. I'm not fussed. There's another one. Claims to be atheist, still says, "Oh my God."
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, there's, I've noticed that Peter Thurston, instead of saying, "Thank God," he'll say, "Thanks Sagan," as in Carl Sagan, I assume. And this is a colloquial expression. And people are used to saying that in our culture, but they still do it anyway. So it just becomes habit for a lot of people, I guess. I saw some other memes there. I think they're just reflecting on a habit that somebody has, and the person's just not being so particular with their words. So what? It doesn't matter. You know, it's kind of like saying atheists claims to be atheists, but still celebrate Christmas. There's a similarity there because Christmas is a culmination of all sorts of different cultures and traditions, and you have with the Christmas tree being some kind of tradition that has no origins in Christianity at all. And yet the Christmas tree is touted by some Christians as being a Christian moniker of some sort.
Apologies, I just had to quickly change something, hence I didn't change around or say anything.
Problem. That's why I raised the part about Christmas there as a bit of a parallel.
Yeah. Next one is more of an atheist meme, actually. It says, okay, why is Satan evil if he punishes the evil?
Okay, so this one kind of hits close to home for me because when I was a kid, my parents, we moved into a new neighborhood, and it was a move up for us from the previous neighborhood. And some of the neighbors there greeted us, and they invited us to come to the church on Sundays. So we humored them and went along and gave it a try, and saw that what happened was the first Sunday we were there, the pastor was, or the preacher, or whatever his title was, he was talking about, I was listening, trying to make sense of what he's saying. And this is before I was 12, by the way. And I'm trying to make sense of what he's saying. And he's talking about how bad the devil is, how bad Satan is. And he referred to him as the Satan, I think. And then he goes on about this. And then he talks about how God has thrown him into hell to punish him, all this kind of stuff. And then later on, he talked about how people will go to hell and be punished if they don't do God's bidding or do things that are favorable to God and be good and all this stuff. So then I turned to my dad and I asked him, if Satan is one of the bad guys and we do something bad, why would he punish us? Wouldn't he be rewarding us or at least thanking us for doing what he favors instead of what God, who's punishing him, favors? And I didn't ask in so many words back then. It was probably a simpler question because I was a kid. And so my dad, being a skeptic himself, said, that's a great question. Why don't we ask the pastor afterwards? So after the session, it was just at the end. So he's out there at the door thanking everybody for being there, providing good customer services. I think good clergy will do for that sort of thing. I then asked the question, and so his immediate response was, "Oh, the Lord works in mysterious ways," or something along those lines. And then he asked again. Then I asked again. I said, "Well, no, but this is what you said." So I was being insistent, and he was not liking this, I think, because I kept insisting and kept asking. My dad was patient, just letting the conversation go, and not stopping it. And the pastor was starting to look over at my dad a bit, like, let's move this along. And so finally we went on our way. The week later, we found out that we were made to feel very unwelcome there. And so we just didn't go back.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I only just realized this one earlier for the first time. If people think that we end up knowing from the very beginning all of this information, it's not. It's this ongoing journey for all of us, where new information is being picked up all the time. Are we ready for another one?
Sure thing. Yeah.
Oh, maybe go to that one first.
I love this shirt. It's hilarious.
So this guy's leaning back in his chair, I think, and it says, "I'm an atheist, debate me," on his shirt.
Sure.
And the meme says, "Denounces evangelical Christians, preaches atheism to everyone he meets."
So probably what's happening is if I was to guess what's really going on right off the bat, I think he's probably denouncing evangelical Christianity as an ideology. And unfortunately, there are many people who, if you criticize, put any critique on their religion, they take it personally. So that's probably, there's a bit of information lost in translation there, is my guess. Because I think most people don't go around and act like bigots. It's been my experience that the vast majority of people are not bigoted. They don't go around denouncing individual groups of entire people like that. I just don't see it. Maybe it's different in different countries, but I've just not seen that here in Canada. You know, it's once in a while we get people come in and do stuff, but they're very rare, and they usually get shouted out. And I can tell you later about the white supremacists coming here a few years ago. That was kind of interesting, but preaches atheism to everyone he meets. So preaching atheism. Well, you know, there are some people out there who do think that the world should not have any religion at all. And that, and they consider that to be, and of course their opponents consider that to be some kind of preaching. I remember Christopher Hitchens was in a limousine with, I think it was Shmuley or some rabbi. I believe it was a rabbi or a priest. I think he's a rabbi. Anyway, he didn't know he's being recorded. And the rabbi was, I believe it was a rabbi, asking him, Michael Shmuley, I think was his name. Anyway, if anybody knows this, please feel free to correct it in the comments. The limousine interview, the question he was asked in the limousine as he's taking his drink is that if he could eradicate religion throughout the world, would he do it? And Christopher Hitchens, I liked his response, and I agree with him. He's saying no, he wouldn't do it, even if he had the power to do it. And I think, if I recall correctly, his reason for that was because by taking that away, you'd be taking away everybody's opportunity to make up their minds for themselves, and he wouldn't want to do that. And I thought that's such a wonderful reason. So I think to say that people are preaching atheism, there are some people who I guess they do kind of preach it, but I'd have to ask, what is it that they're preaching exactly, since there is no doctrine for atheism? I think if I was going to wear a shirt like that, I'd probably put something purposely somewhat grammatically incorrect and say, I'm an atheist, ask me how. If I was to do something as daring as wear a shirt like that, that's probably would be my preferred wording. But oh well, I've always thought that picture itself, it was very funny. I thought, I'm an atheist debate. That's just hilarious.
Okay, you'll like this next one. This also is slightly out of focus.
That's okay.
A little bit out of focus. And you'll like this next one because it is to do with Canada, which is the real name of your country. I did get that on a live stream once when I was not a live stream, when I was.
Are you sure it's not pronounced Canada?
You know, it might be. I'll ask Shannon Q. I'll find out. This next one takes a little bit of explaining, and now it's going to end up being you working it out quicker than I can explain it for those. So I'm just going to let you react to it, and then I'm going to explain it. All right.
Lake Louise. Yeah, Lake Louise is a wonderful place to visit here in Canada. It's a little hard to read the fine print there. So
okay.
On the first one,
Let me
thinks this happened by chance one day. Here we go. Christians think a wizard did it. Lake Louise, man-made lake in Jasper National Park, Canada. This is like they're trying to draw a parallel here, perhaps, with Ray Comfort talking about the banana. And that whole debacle where he claimed that was intelligently designed because it fits perfectly in your hand and all that nonsense. Him with Kirk Cameron, the guy who was a star on the TV back in the 80s. And then of course somebody pointed out that those bananas that he has are actually genetically engineered by humans. And then I saw another video, by the way, was with Ray Comfort then doing the same thing with an apple. And then somebody pointing out that that species of apple that he had was also genetically engineered by humans. So I guess he finally decided to stop at that point. I'm kind of disappointed. I was hoping he'd go through all the different fruits and vegetables and make a whole series out of it. That would be good. So the first one here, atheists think this happened by chance one day. So this is, of course, again, conflating with science and thinking and presuming that atheists are making scientific claims in the realm of science, and which, of course, is true for many who have an interest in science, but not of all. And then,
could I quickly explain it for those who are just listening?
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do apologise. There's a picture. There's a picture of Lake Louise in Canada. It's very pretty. A lot of blue water and green trees and snowy mountains, and it's all very, very lush and lovely. And it says, atheists think this happened by chance one day. And then there's a meme of that meme saying, Christians think a wizard did it. And then there's a meme of the meme saying Lake Louise man-made lake in Jasper National Park, Canada. So we've got some memeception going on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No,
that's okay. It's good to re-explain it. So it happened by chance, and it's as if somebody's rolled a bunch of dice and out it came. That's why I don't really care for the word chance. This is just a matter of how things grow naturally on our planet, and how things have evolved. So, of course, the first part is silly. And then the second part, Christians think a wizard did it, which, of course, the wizard is a reference to their deity, obviously. And then the third part, Lake Louise, man-made in Jasper National Park. So I guess I don't know the full history of Lake Louise. If it was carved out by humans, then okay. The end result is we have something that's very, very nice, and
it's very pretty.
Oh yeah, I've been there a number of times, and it's worth going up there. But if you're going to travel to there, that's up in Banff. You want to make sure that you get all your hotel and accommodations figured out at least 6 months in advance. It's a very popular place, and you can have a very nice drive along the highway all across BC and part of Alberta there too, our next province. So it is a wonderful trip to take, and it's quiet and serene and wonderful. And there's a giant hotel overlooking that lake that you can stay in. It's not in the picture there, but it's a beautiful hotel. So
we're gonna have a bonus round.
Sorry,
we're gonna have a bonus round in just a second.
Yeah. Okay. So this one though, this whole set of memes here. Because of the last one, reminds me of kind of Ray Comfort explaining the banana. Yeah.
I found your leaf for you.
Hey, yeah, you can put that on the cherries.
This is a slightly different fallacy, if anyone wants to guess it.
Oh, boy.
Used when defending pro-life.
Oh boy. Yeah, pro-life is one of those terms I like to purposely add confusion in to the conversation, saying, yeah, I'm pro-life of the pregnant person, and it's it drives them up the wall sometimes. Boy, I don't know which fallacy this is referring to. I'm sorry.
Hashtag Heathen says, "Leave me alone." That's not a fallacy. Nice try. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for taking part. No, this is an appeal to nature that says that because it's natural, therefore it must be right and moral.
You know, I'm going to mention Dr. Burgosian here again. In that lecture to Intel, he was saying he heard some advertisement on the radio for something, and the person saying, oh, you should try this product. It's all natural. It's perfectly safe. And then he pointed out with his critical thinking skills, he's saying, look, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe. there's a problem with their claim right there off the bat. Taking it literally is very important on this, and to be able to practice critical thinking all the way to its extended ends, I think. And he's saying there are a number of natural things that he wouldn't put on his face. One of them is plutonium. Another one is poison ivy. And I thought this is a very good point.
Fair enough. I'm going to also switch back my camera. You wanted to, just moving on the conversation, you wanted to talk about justice as well, and particularly somebody called John Rawls and his veil of ignorance.
Did somebody else have some other questions first in the comments? Like it looked like somebody had some stuff to ask about learning or something.
What I'm going to do, I'll quickly check those questions now as I'm changing camera, and then I'll ask that in just a second.
Okay. So yeah, so for those who don't know about John Rawls, he's a contemporary philosopher, and unlike other philosophers who typically will address a number of different areas in philosophy, a number of different topics, John Rawls was very strictly focused on justice and on the formation of laws and how to. It's all part and parcel with justice, and he published a work in the 1970s, I believe, called A Theory of Justice. And within that publication, which is kind of a hard one to read because apparently there's a lot of redundancy in it. He kind of repeats himself quite a bit, but it's worthwhile reading, I think. There's one part in there he talks about the concept of what he calls the veil of ignorance, which is actually, I think, quite a wonderful idea for considering how to form just laws. And it can even be, I find, even useful in trying to determine what's moral, because people sometimes, religious people ask me, if you're an atheist, how can you be moral without God? Which, first of all, is a condescending question. It's an insult, because it's assuming that I can't be moral without this God. It's a ridiculous assumption, because how all this religion started, you have people who are not having deities to draw from, it seems. But nonetheless, what his idea basically is if you're a lawmaker, you will, in forming your laws, you will do so with the consideration of every possible role in society you can consider. And when you put on that veil of ignorance, the idea is that you don't know what your role will be in society until after those laws are put into effect. And then your role will be thrown in randomly. You will be any one of those. So this is a mental exercise meant to try to create a bit of a sense of empathy for the people who are going to be impacted by those laws, and try to consider, almost like in the frame of a risk assessment in a business plan, to try to consider all different possibilities that you can to try to come up with the laws that are most fair and most just for everybody, so that everybody can be equal under the law. So it's a wonderful concept, and I think that as more countries form their laws with this kind of philosophy, we can have better justice systems overall for everybody.
Agreed. I just want to quickly quote Doc Fearsome, one of several people who's now got a wrench as well. I don't think anything happens by chance or is random, nor do I think there was an intelligence involved. I think the conditions were right for it to happen. And I agree. I think we just manifested like a flame.
I would say that seems to be the case from the knowledge we have. And I think that's a totally fair and reasonable approach to have in life going forward with trying to better understand all of this stuff. Yes, I agree.
Mark from Australia, as I was confirmed in one of the previous podcasts, I'm glad I got that right.
Great.
Was replying to Robert X about something else, but basically brings up the issue of atheists knowing their Bible better than the Christians that they're debating.
Oh, okay. I think that if you look at somebody like Matt Dillahunty, who, as I understand it, was studying to become a minister or some kind of important position like that within the church, he definitely knows the Bible very well, and he's able to use that to his advantage when he's debating with theists, particularly Christians. So, in fact, I do think there's a lot of atheists who do know the Bible quite well, and for different reasons. Some of them because they want to be good at debating this, be skillful at debating these things, these topics. Others because perhaps they were indoctrinated into it earlier in life and are now ex-religious. But they, of course, remember all this because, or a lot of it, because they studied it. So I don't know if I can agree that that most atheists know the Bible better. I think it's a generalization that would need some kind of survey to try to understand where things are.
Sometimes you got cut off then.
Oh. Getting a text message from your wife now?
I'm not sure. That's never actually happened before. But no.
Telemarketer. They're calling you now.
Yeah, basically. That's completely thrown me. So what I was going to do after all of that sort of atheist Christian talk was do what I normally do, which is go into various topical events that have happened throughout the week. And I've mentioned this now and again with various other guests I've had this week.
Okay.
People like Jim Majors I've had this week. Topic Thunder has been on and is in the comments, I believe. Hello. And Frank from Geek Room. I'm still about 50-50 on getting Godless Engineered by Sunday. We're just about there. We're almost there. And the topics that I particularly brought up, some of them I haven't yet. So I just wanted your quick opinion. And again, I realized you were concerned about whether this was me asking you, say, just explain all of science for me. Like this isn't like that. So, okay. You obviously would have heard the announcement of the
sorry. The question you're asking, please explain all of science for me. I'm thinking, who do they think I am? Stephen Hawking, or Neil deGrasse Tyson, or Bill Nye, or somebody like this, or Carl Sagan? Like these are the people. I can imagine these people would say, "Explain all of science." Are you kidding? I imagine they're going to say, "I can explain what I know," but I don't think that it's a very reasonable question. But go on.
Yeah, I'm not actually asking that question. I wondered if you'd seen the news of the very first picture of a black hole that has now been released.
I heard it was on its way. I actually haven't seen it.
Oh, wonderful! That means I can.
Very dark.
I can spend some time trying to find it, and then I can ask you a different question while I'm doing that.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be hard to find that picture.
I know for certain you'll be able to answer this one because I have been admiring your gaming chair all podcast. So I don't know if there's a particular story behind that. Yeah.
Fun. Oh, okay.
That one.
Yeah, it's
looks squishy.
Yeah, it's comfortable. My dad had it, but then he got a better chair, so I took it. So I don't know the history of it. I actually don't. I'm not really doing very much gaming. I did when I was younger. I'm more interested in designing and building games now. But
interesting.
Yeah, back burner projects for now. I have bills to pay. Sorry.
Yeah, I did spend about a month trying to make a video game. And I got reasonably far. It's just the coding became too complicated by the end.
What kind of?
It was a bit overwhelming.
Game?
So I downloaded Unreal Engine 4, which is free, by the way, if anyone wants to make video games. Which is the engine that Epic Games uses. So it's the engine that's used to make Fortnite and Gears of War, and that software is out there free at the minute.
Okay.
So you can download that for free, and then I started just making my own video game, which got there ish, kind of. Some of the mechanics of trying to make an enemy try to follow you and try to be also randomly moving around the map in a realistic way is quite challenging. So it's about as far as I got.
Those systems are quite good, especially when they've got successful games like Fortnite to have on the showcase, and they make it a lot easier, those systems, for people to do things. The way that I would be going about it would be basically building it almost from scratch, not using any of those kinds of engines or those kinds of pre-made off-the-shelf systems for it, because the stuff that I want to do in the game that I want to make, those systems, it would just be a nightmare working around and be easier just to build from scratch the way I want to do it. I started back in the 80s as a kid with this idea of building something with 32 players. And because we had BBS bullet board systems back then with modems, this is before internet, obviously, which came out mid to late 90s. It started to really become mainstream for people, but the internet, that is. So I ended up starting to write backstory, and I got kind of carried away with the backstory. So the game itself is on the back burner.
This is as good an image I can get. This is not me with bad focus, I can assure you. This is the actual photo.
Hey, it's a start.
It's definitely a start, isn't it? I mean, you can have
more of an end than a start, I guess.
Well, yeah, well, it depends on whether you're a particle of something or other. I'm not intelligent enough to comment on this. But it's fascinating that the way in which it was done. Do you know how it was done?
No, I don't know very much about this at all, but I did read on it later. But yeah.
The way I explained it earlier in the week was, I'll try and be quicker this time. It was making the Earth into a giant telescope by having lots of little telescopes in different continents working together.
Oh, okay.
So it eventually produced this image, which is courtesy of the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration. And it says in the bottom corner. So, yeah, fascinating advancement. I wasn't sure if you were aware of the Israeli attempt at landing on the moon as well.
No, I know that China recently went and got pictures of the dark side of the moon, and but I wasn't aware of what Israel had done recently.
Is that another Pink Floyd reference?
Might as well be. Maybe they could.
I wouldn't know. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a Pink Floyd reference.
Maybe they could play Dark Side of the Moon with the Chinese singer singing in Chinese lyrics. All translated. Boy, that would be interesting.
The reason I asked is because... Oh, I could just hear myself. I'll sit a bit further back. Sometimes I get a bit too close to the microphone. I can hear the feedback. The reason I asked about it is because yesterday Israel... almost landed. It was the first private venture to the moon, and it took a photograph of itself like maybe several kilometers above the surface of the moon. So it sent the photo back, but then crash landed. It was obviously destroyed, and it's sent back this really great photo, which I won't find. I don't want to keep going back and forth on the camera, because I know a lot of people are just listening and not watching. I don't want them to feel like they're missing out.
Somebody's just corrected me and said it's the far side of the moon, not the dark side of the moon. Thanks for the correction. I'll try to remember that. I like that. That's good. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, I think it is, particularly when we think about private space ventures and thinking about Elon Musk and SpaceX and what is it? Not Blue Marble, Blue Orbit. What's the Jeff Bezos company?
I don't know.
Blue Origin.
Okay.
I think it's that. That's what it's called. And all these private entities that are bringing forward an era within space mining, as well, mining asteroids. Do you have a particular ethics or morality concerning going into space and harvesting in this way?
From asteroids, definitely not. From other planets, I guess if there's life on those other planets, we'd obviously need to be cognizant of that and respect their autonomy. But if there's not life on the other planets, sure, why not? I don't see a problem with it. As long as it doesn't introduce a new safety concern of some sort, like bringing back some new diseases or altering the trajectory of something that can have catastrophic effects for us or other life in the cosmos, then as long as none of that's going on, I really don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I think there would be an issue if there is an argument that says life came to the planet. I don't personally believe this, but on an asteroid or something like that, and that became what would be a meteorite. I think if it lands and if it comes through the atmosphere and lands, it's a meteorite. I think that's right. I think the asteroid is going through space. The meteor goes through the atmosphere, and a meteorite lands and hits the with impact. I think that's right. Somebody correct me in the comments. And if it does become a meteorite and has life on it, we could be potentially stopping life from happening on another planet if we were to mine it. So
it's traveling through space. I think this is we need to deal with the here and now mostly. We don't know if it's going to land on another planet and what's going to happen 1,000 years from now. I don't think it's really a big deal. I think that's just people worrying too much.
Fair enough.
Reading too much into it. You know, it's. I think if there's already life established somewhere, that's what I'm talking about. Some kind of conscious life. If it's just a bunch of organisms that are mindless, what's the big deal? You know, or there's no life at all. No problem with mining it.
What I was going to ask you again, I'm not entirely sure whether you would be able to answer, but that's why I'm asking. Are you, as a Canadian, are you a particularly big fan of ice hockey?
No, I'm not. But ice hockey is very popular here. Most people are right into it. Although my wife and I will follow the final games. Just kind of casually. There are people who will save up during the year and spend money to buy tickets for really good seats right at the games, the final games, or at some of the games, and they'll buy their season tickets to go to all these things. They dress up their car, they wear the jerseys, they got the hats with the beer cans or whatever is going on, and they're right into it. And so it is quite widely celebrated here, and it is very popular. Hockey's a big thing here, definitely. Ice hockey,
one of those,
particularly.
Yeah, those interesting sports where you end up. I mean, the only thing I really know about it is that people just get into fights.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I find unappealing about it, because if I'm going to watch a sports game, I want to see the sport. I don't want to see people having temper tantrums and acting like children and beating the crap out of each other on the sports field in the arena. But there are people who tell me, oh, that's why they go to see the game, because they want to see the fights. So it's like, it's unfortunate that the sport has such a reputation for that people are going there to see just that. And I suppose it's part of the ratings game.
Yeah, I only wanted to ask briefly because I can't really talk about it.
Do you see it with international football, I like to call it, which what we call here in North America soccer? With your international football, do you see, you like that, don't you? International, this is what the standard should be. Do the players fight a lot, or is that kind of a rare occurrence, or does it just not happen at all where you are?
There's always flare-ups. I mean,
yeah,
it will consist of a particular player and another particular player going in for a particular a tackle, and then maybe something's said, something's late. There's been little comments throughout the game, and then all of a sudden on the hour mark or towards the end of the game, they're more tired and tempers flare a bit, and then teammates come and defend them, and then nothing really happens, or there's a card given. But it's not like ice hockey.
No, it doesn't turn into a knockout, drag out fight kind of thing.
No, it never does, because we've, particularly at the highest level, because there's cameras everywhere, and you'll be given a huge ban.
Oh yeah, banishment. Yeah,
I can't remember.
Banished here.
I can't remember the ban Luis Suarez got for biting another player. He had a particular problem, recurring problem with biting players over a number of years, and so I think he eventually got like a 12-match ban or something when he was at Liverpool, and then he went to Barcelona. So
okay. Yeah, we had a famous, I think Mike Tyson, famous boxer, bit some guy's ear, may have bit a part of it off or something, one of his opponents. It's just like, wow. Get hit in the head so many times, and brain stops working all that well for some people. It's pretty, yeah, boxing's a pretty violent sport, because you've got people are getting punched in the head a lot, and I worry about the brain damage.
Sorry. Yeah, I would worry about the brain damage in boxing as well. I don't know if anyone else just cut out on sound just for a second. Not entirely sure why.
Probably my cup of water moved the sound waves around. Sorry about that.
Maybe. It might have been what we were talking about before, when we end up just going, we're not actually talking, but we're just gesticulating in silence.
Oh, you're just pretending. Sorry, I thought you were people. Out there. You're very convincing.
Yeah.
All those hand gestures looks like you've got something important to say. Oh boy.
I've got nothing important to say. Don't worry. Have you watched any of these podcasts? It's just wasting people's time. I've only got one other little topic to bring up.
Sure.
And I don't know how well received it would be, but I kind of have to say it, given the day that it is. Everyone knows I'm going to talk about Brexit, and
yeah, I don't know much
today was meant to be. Yeah, today was meant to be the second official day that we were meant to leave. So we were meant to leave March 29th, and then that was moved back to today. And earlier this week, it was extended to the 31st of October.
Wow.
As far as I'm aware, is Halloween. So we've got a huge break now, and Parliament's gone into recess for Easter. And it was it's funny because the EU presidents are tweeting all the time, so you can get the information direct from them. You don't need to hear it from our politicians saying, "Oh, such and such in Europe." You can just get it directly from them. And they were saying, right, with all this extra time you've now got, don't waste any of it. And then we immediately went into recess for about a month. So, or not, maybe not a month. It's probably how long? At least a couple of weeks. So we're just wasting our more time. The big thing I bring up about with that is because the main proponent of Brexit, Nigel Farage, has launched his new Brexit party today in anticipation of a general election, I guess. Not that there's one planned at the minute, but it's perfectly possible, I suppose. And the most interesting part of that particular story I can grasp on is that one of the main leading Brexiteers, called Jacob Rees-Mogg, his sister is standing for that new Brexit party. But the really puzzling thing to me is how apparently she joined the Conservative Party at the age of 5. And it just strikes me as a bit like joining a religion when you're a child.
So she joined the party. Probably her parents are very big proponents of the party, and it's a big part of their life, would be my guess. And so they thought it'd be wonderful. I know somebody here who they're Christians. I think they might be evangelical. They're pretty strong into it, and they went and got a PhD for their daughter for a gift from the University of Phoenix in Arizona, USA. And I looked into it, and those cost about $900 US right now. So there's this little girl who's still in elementary school, and she's got a PhD. So apparently, University of Phoenix is a diploma mill. So, and I saw the PhD. I asked what was her thesis on, and then of course the answer kind of went really vague at that point because it was paid for. It's like, oops, I didn't push the matter, but I thought, oh wow, okay, they were there. It's and I think it's a shame when those when kids get put into those things, if that's like, those are kind of adult activities, and getting a 5-year-old into a political party just seems to me like this is just something to get votes. You know, they're going to say, oh, look at this 5-year-old promoting this party, and everyone's going to share it around and say, here's a 5-year-old who's in the party, and we got to vote for them. And it's a marketing ploy, most likely, the way I see it, because 5-year-olds at that age, they're not thinking about politics. You know, kids in grade 6 and 7 and all throughout high school, yeah, you can talk politics with them and they get it. You know, they have perspectives. It's here we see in elementary school the kids very often talk politics, and sometimes they, like here in Canada, they'll talk about US politics, and there'll be a bunch of kids who are making fun of Donald Trump, and they're making fun of his name and saying all kinds of silly things, and then there's a few kids who are in favor of Trump, and so of course conflict arises from that. So it's but most of it is from the kids copying what their parents are saying. I think a lot of it. I think mostly that's what you see, and it's common for children as they're growing up to want to please their parents. They want to do things that will impress the adults who rule their world, so to speak. And so naturally they'll try to emulate their behaviors and copy what they do. It's just normal for kids to do that. So if the parents are really strong on certain political views, the kids tend to adopt those views and internalize them and then repeat them themselves. So this comes out at school. I was talking with the teachers about this, just casually talking to a couple of teachers, and they're saying, yeah, the kids start talking that they duck out. They don't want to get involved because it's understandable too. And I think the reason they don't want to get involved is because otherwise parents might start complaining if their kid comes home and says, the teacher said the other kids are right with the politics and blah, blah, blah. And then people get all upset, you know. Generally, I try to stay away from these discussions about specific politicians and things like that, because I find that people have very strong views very often on politics. I see it more, you probably noticed this too, you probably see it quite prevalent in the US. It's very divided with Democrat versus Republican. Here in Canada, we've got about 5 parties to choose from. So we're not thinking, and we're generally as a society not thinking of terms of there's only 2 choices. So we tend to be a little more easygoing, and it's quite common for people here to change who they're going to vote for from one election to the next and not be completely dedicated to a party all their life. I know people who used to vote NDP who now vote Liberal, and people who voted Conservative now vote NDP, and it goes all over the place. So, and then there's a couple of other parties I didn't mention there. But do you see that kind of thing in your area? How many parties have you got there? Major parties?
Well, political parties, we have the Conservative government. The official opposition is Labour. So blue team is in government, red team is in opposition. You then have various different groups. So the third largest group, the second largest opposition, is actually now the SNP, which is the Scottish nationalists that want independence.
Oh, okay.
Then, where it used to be Liberal Democrats, who have fallen down slightly, you have quite a few independents that are now part of an independent group, and they've just launched their political party as well. So they've defected from blue and red team, as it were. You've also got the Greens that I've stood in elections for and will be voting for again in the up and coming EU elections, which is the other issue I briefly brought up with Topic Thunder yesterday, which was that because of this extension, we're now going to have to vote for members of the European Parliament to sit in Parliament in Europe. So this is almost like a practice vote to just give an update as to how we feel. So if all of those MEPs turn UKIP purple, then fair enough. If they all vote Brexit Party, or Nigel Farage's new like cyan blue party, then okay, yep, fine. That's very clear. That's very obvious. But what I think is going to happen is a shift. There's going to be a mix, obviously, and at the minute, our biggest European representative party is UKIP, which is the UK Independence Party, which has led to Brexit.
Okay.
Such that I think they're going to definitely lose their majority, because that party was Nigel Farage's party. That was just him. That was him on his own, and now he's left that party. So they're going to fall by the wayside. I think Conservatives might lose MPs, and I think Labour are probably going to not be that much different. I think we're most likely going to see a small increase for the Brexit Party, and they're going to become that party in Europe. But the biggest representatives will be probably Lib Dem and Green, and that left-leaning Remain, revoke, rejoin, whatever it may be, aspect. So yeah, we've got quite a few. We've also got Plaid Cymru, the Welsh nationalists that want independence for Wales. You've got the two Northern Irish main ones, which is the DUP, which are currently in cahoots with the Conservative government and Theresa May's government. You also have Sinn Féin, which have various links to the IRA and terrorism within Northern Ireland. Just Google the Troubles, obviously, if people haven't already. So we've got a hugely complex. Yeah, it's all very exciting. It looks like, well, we're definitely going to go to local elections as well. So we've got local borough council elections coming up. Then immediately afterwards, we'll have the European elections, and that might indicate what way to go concerning whether to have another referendum, leave on no deal, depending on that. That's the way it's been received.
Sounds like you got a lot more political party activity going on there, and it's good to hear you have the independents in there too. We don't really see that here. At the provincial level, we have there's the Liberals, which are actually it's a misleading name, because they're actually the socially conservatives, and they're conservatives as well. So they're and then we have the NDP, which got enough to just barely defeat them, and then with the help of the Green Party, that's made the tiebreaker. I think Green got like 2 seats. The Green parties here have been really really struggling, and they don't really get much in the way of votes, but they've been gradually increasing over time. So it's a change here from having a long run of the BC Liberals trying to privatize everything, and it's been a mess. The federal level, we've had progressive conservatives, which sounds like an oxymoron to me, but they've been in power for a very long time, and finally we've got Liberals now who are undoing the damage that they've been doing, because they're very strongly right-wing religious, the previous party. So the current one has been restoring funding to science programs and recovering women's rights and things like that the conservatives were gradually eroding and taking away. And I think that the previous those conservatives were trying to turn Canada into a theocracy, but that's all been mostly undone now, which is good. it's kind of a mess. The politics is always messy. I think one of the biggest problems with politics in general, though, is that political parties are they're detrimental, because you have you're voting for these politicians who are supposed to be representing your community and representing you in effect. But then when they're part of a political party, they have to be loyal to that party as well. So their loyalty is split between the voting public, who they're really supposed to be loyal to, and the parties. Because if they don't toe the party line most of the time, then they could lose the funding and office space and all these other resources that the political party grants to them. So this is a flaw with the system, obviously. And it's a shame, because over time, what unfortunately happens with these political parties is that we'll see a couple of them will sometimes merge, and then suddenly they get a lot more voters because they take the best candidates from each party and they run with those. And then that gives them kind of a rather hefty advantage in the elections. So, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem that I think I'm not sure how to solve it. But I definitely like to see more independence out there.
Yeah, it does seem to be going in that direction. I mean, I think Bernie Sanders is technically an independent. And then he's obviously standing for the Democrats. I'm not really sure how that works, but he may well be having a duel with Trump next year. Who knows?
Oh yeah, it's there's so much going on in the world. So yeah, were there any other questions that people had?
Not the ones that I've been tagged in, at least. If people do still have questions, we do still have a little bit of time. We are at about just over 2 hours now, so we're just going to have to start to wind down.
I did post a link to a Brexit sign image that I made.
Yes, I did briefly see all of those memes. I like that.
You like it? Put it up if you want.
Sure. I mean,
what that one's from? There's these green exit signs, which are new fire exit sign standards for the fire regulations here. And we used to have red signs, but apparently the green is easier to differentiate in a fire and cuts through the smoke or something better. I'm not sure, but that's what I've been told. And so it would say exit with that green on it. And I thought, just for fun, I'll stick a B on there and make it a Brexit sign. So had some fun with that. I had one person comment to me one time is that now every time they see those green exit signs, they think Brexit because they saw this meme.
I am just trying to still work out my camera. It's not always the quickest. It doesn't do it automatically sometimes. Okay. So I'm just going to keep it on your screen until that's about ready.
Yeah, that's my website. Just scroll down to the bottom there.
I'm just trying to line it up properly.
Yeah, that Order of the Stick is actually a very nice cartoon to read to your kids. It's they've got over 1,000 episodes in there, and you can just read one a night to them as a kind of bedtime story. I did that with my kids. They really liked it. So I highly recommend the Order of the Stick. The other cartoon you see there, it's got some. It's a little bit more adult oriented. So yeah, I've got a few jokes on here, a few memes.
Paul, it's also a Doctor Who reference. That he always when
which one?
The top one. So when
that's from Gary Larson. That's a Gary Larson.
Okay,
The Far Side.
I was going to mention the joke that happened when I think it was during Matt Smith's era when the TARDIS became like a sentient woman, and they were talking to each other. As like Doctor and the TARDIS were talking to each other, and they were having a big argument. And to which the TARDIS said, "What does it say on my door? What does it say? It says, pull. What do you do? I push." Which he does. It's always done that from the very beginning, like 50 odd years ago. It's always said that on the front of the TARDIS.
Yeah, that's the Midvale School for the Gifted there. Everybody's got something right. So
Jesus cat. Walking on water like Moses. Or was it like, not Moses, Jesus?
Yeah, that's obviously ice, but yeah.
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 Pamphlet is blank. We're atheists. Very nice.
Going door to door.
The
this one's quite motivational. It had a different caption before that includes some swear words, so I changed the caption to make it much more fitting of what a little girl would actually say.
Oh, fair enough.
My daughter's really
again, for those who are just listening, it's a picture of some sort of SWAT team of some sort, and the little girl looks like she's going to school, and she's just standing in front of them walking to school, whereas they're being very defensive, very protective.
Guns out, yeah.
Merry nothing, same to you. Atheist Christmas. To be fair, I didn't know that was how computers were made. You have taught me something.
And that's a great example of a critical thinker's response. Oh, is this how they're made? Well, prove it now. We want to see more.
And of course, this is your Brexit one as well.
Yeah, that's the Brexit sign.
Which is very well made.
I didn't make the others. I only made this one. Oh, and the determination one. But yeah, it's this has been a fun one to share with people who are affected by Brexit. It doesn't really take one particular side. It's just kind of showing you way to the door. So people on both sides of that equation can enjoy it, I hope.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's just a bit of fun. Bit of ribbing. Where is my visuals? What's that? Oh, there we go.
There you are.
Gosh, it just takes too long, and I can't really screen share because it's just it's frozen up way too many times before, and it's just I don't want to risk what happened to Prophet Zod when he was on, and I ended up having 2 podcasts with him in the end because I dropped out of the first one. Was everything just completely shut down. And then I came back on the second time and I'd run out of data. So there we are. What can you do? The only other thing I wanted to do was ask you if you had any questions for me, because I know that this might be stealing a format from Neil here, because you interviewed him on his channel as opposed to him interviewing you.
Let me tell you what happened there. Like, he was because I don't have a deconversion story, and but you know, it'd be I would have loved to be on his channel if I did. And so I said to him, look, April 1st is coming up, and I noticed you don't have anything scheduled for that date, because he was showing me his schedule. And I said, how about this? You tell people there's a mystery guest, and then I'll interview you. He right away thought it was a great idea, and so we made that happen. And so it was kind of nice for him to have to get to talk about 95% of the time and explain his whole history about it. I found his whole story interesting. What I did was I made up a list of questions, just a one-page list of questions and topics I wanted to cover, and sent it to him in advance so that he'd have time to kind of think about it and be able to provide really great answers and have a good quality podcast for a good quality YouTube show for everybody. And I think it did work out pretty well, because his answers to the questions were really quite good. I guess questions for you. I wasn't really thinking anything like that, but I guess you already covered why you got into this show and doing this podcast, I guess, if you want to call it. It's more of a YouTube show,
yeah.
I think.
I never use the word show because it always sounds very American.
What do you call it?
There was a wonderful moment on Question Time, which is a political program over here. And back when David Dimbleby, because he retired at Christmas, so when he was presenting maybe a couple of years ago, they had Piers Morgan on, and he called it a show because he was doing his own show in America at the time before he got sacked. And David Dimbleby interrupted him and said, "No, it's not a show; it's a program."
Actually, I like that. Program we use sometimes here in Canada, so I think I like that better than show, because show sounds a little bit like a circus.
Yeah, I just liked him correcting Piers Morgan.
Yeah, actually, I like program. I think I'm going to talk with Neil about maybe we should use that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really know what it's just a channel. I would refer to it as a channel or a podcast. Yeah. No, the reason I wanted to put you on the spot is because there was an aspect of what I had seen, which we were going back and forth talking about what to discuss here, and then the conversation went into that podcast with Neil and you interviewing him. And so I watched back on the bits that I'd missed. I came in late to that particular program channel.
We got a bit of a rough start there because Neil just switched to live without giving me any warning.
I did do that. I did that to Richard Carrier, and he was he came in a bit late and was like, "Are we going live?" It's like, we are. So the main thing I wanted to try and prepare you for was, to an extent, the unexpected. Because I know things from what is just about at the end of 40-second podcasts for this channel is there's so many things you would just inevitably learn on the job, and I nobody can prepare you for it. And it's obviously the way in which you react to it. Yeah. But there's moments where you are scripted to an extent. The most scripted I've been was with Kyle, obviously. From Non-Sector, and then there's other people. When I talk to Neil, or it might be a particularly arty. When I had Artemis Brain Sample on last week, I think, we could just riff. We could riff for hours and hours and hours and hours, and we wouldn't need any notes because it's just that sort of conversation. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you just to see how you would react. I don't actually expect you to now talk for 3 hours.
Did I pass or fail?
Let us know in the comments if you're going to be tuning in to True North Talk with Randolf Richardson and Neil the 604 Atheist. Actually, there's a good point. Is he going to be introduced as Neil the 604 Atheist or as Neil Bernstein?
That will be up to him. So definitely he'll be introduced as Neil, and we'll probably mostly use our first name basis on that show. It's mostly going to be focused on what the callers want to ask, and focused on those kinds of things. It's that's our intention. So because that's the important part of the whole program. I should start using that word. I like that better than show, actually. So. The place that we're at right now is finding a location that we can set up things at, and it's basically set up our cameras and set up the computer systems that we're going to need to run it, and all this kind of stuff. The phone lines, we need to. The biggest hurdle for us is finding that place where we can, the physical place where we can do this. Once we have that, then we can have a few other people who want to volunteer to come in and help out with running things, answering phones behind the scenes and whatnot. Because we want to have a few people called in and ready to talk so that we don't have the dead time. And of course, we have to think about what we're going to do if there's no calls, right? So, because that's always a possibility when it's a new show. When we look at Atheist Experience, they can't keep up with the calls. The calls just don't stop coming in. And I've seen it sometimes where Matt is there saying, look at the lights coming up. People are still phoning in. So it's quite popular. And so, that'd be wonderful if we can get to that kind of level. So, but otherwise we'll probably have to be prepared to have something to talk about until calls start rolling in. But our hope is that we'll start getting calls right away.
Epic. Just closing off now, just for the last little bit, do you want to give any shout out to either you just mentioned True North Talk and Canadian Atheists at all, or anything else that you've got in the pipeline?
running Canadian Atheists for quite a number of years now, and of course we're always.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. It's just a small interference on the sound. It just sort of cuts out now and again. Just start the sentence.
Okay, is this getting better?
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm the founding president of the Canadian Atheists. I've been running this organization for a few years now, and the biggest challenge we have is in getting more members to sign up. We do have a somewhat steady stream starting to develop of people who are signing up for it, which is wonderful, because the funding, it's $42 Canadian per year. There's that number 42 again, and that helps us. Once we have enough members and cash flow, then we'll be able to start really doing things like doing some advertising campaigns for atheism in general, and also hopefully putting more time into dealing with the government when there's certain issues come up that are relevant to what we do. Our main focus is that we have concerns about protecting the freedoms and rights particularly of atheists, but because we're in a secular society, these rights apply to everybody. So it's important that all these rights be protected, all these freedoms be protected, and not be eroded. And there was a petition that somebody in Ontario started a number of years ago to remove anti-blasphemy laws from our criminal code. And that turned out to be successful. And I did talk to politicians in person about this, and I asked them to please support this. And I told them, look, we have this Charter of Rights and Freedoms that already supersedes that. But by removing it from the criminal code, you can get rid of the potential for vexatious lawsuits, and then that's better for everybody. And so I had this kind of conversation with a few different politicians, and they were pretty much all on board with it, it seemed. And so I'm glad it all went through. And then, of course, it passed in Parliament, and then it had to go through a second process where it ended up with the Senate, and then the Senate did make it go through as well. So I did my small part, and what is the big part of it is that people all over Canada participated in the petition, and because these are people who care about our rights and freedoms, and that's why they sign it. And this is why it was successful. And the politicians, when they see a large number of people supporting a petition like that, they tend to go along with it. So this is how our system works well. And a note about what they're called. A lot of people will call them blasphemy laws, but to me, they're anti-blasphemy laws. And that anti-prefix is left off on it a lot. And there is a bit of ambiguity in our language sometimes comes up, and you may have seen this in other places where they talk about a blasphemy law. To me, a blasphemy law, by definition, should be something that supports the act of blaspheming, whereas an anti-blasphemy law is the one that tries to censor and prevent blasphemy from ever occurring. So but that's just a minor point, but it's the kind of language I tend to use is calling it an anti-blasphemy law. So but yeah, so we're doing these sorts of things. Neil has done some tremendous work with getting people to donate blood, large numbers of people. And so if you want to know more about donating blood, please contact Neil or contact me, and I'll put you in touch with Neil. And we're donating through Canadian Blood Services. And recently I was sick and missed a blood donation meeting. Had to postpone it for a week, so now we can donate on the same day. Works out really well, and we can chat there. But yeah, he's got hundreds of people involved in it and donating, and so it's wonderful because you're helping people who who you don't even know. And there's something recent I just came across, because there are some people who are saying they can't donate blood because there's some problem with their blood, or there's some history of some sort. Well, it turns out Canadian Blood Services now will take that blood as well as donation, because they can use it for research rather than, even though it's a little bit tainted in some way or whatever. So this is wonderful because it means that we can get a lot more people in to help. And the research also helps in a less direct way. It's more indirect, but these are things that we're trying to promote. So, and thank you, Neil, for that.
Yes, thank you, Neil, because obviously he does a lot of good work and brings a lot of the community together, such that I've met a lot of podcast guests through Neil, which is, this is great. Actually, I understood because again, the wonderfully named Doorknob Head.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious. Yep, that is a clever one. Okay. He
mentioned Can Atheists is just making a portmanteau of Canada and atheist, and then I realised I think it's Godless Cranium is his Twitter handle's at Can Atheist. And I was like, what does that mean? And obviously it's Canada because he's Canadian. So it's literally just twigged.
Twitter has something else. Yeah.
Yeah, he's mentioned Freedom from Religion Foundation as well. I often used to end a podcast by saying, have you got any positive message for atheists or things like that? And I haven't done that in a while. And I've just thought about it. And so I thought, you're a good person as the president of Canadian Atheists to do that.
Yeah. So I guess, I like what Freedom from Religion Foundation does. I have total respect for what they do. They're doing excellent work. I'm hoping they'll expand to Canada one day. We don't have as much crazy stuff going on here as the US, so they'd probably find it pretty easy work here. The thing I can say about atheism that I think is very positive, first of all, a little background. We are in my quest to try to discourage or try to put an end to the vilification of atheists, the people being dishonest about all that and misrepresenting atheism is I have set up a website called defineatheism.com, which includes references, includes explanation of linguistic structure, etymology, common usage, and a logical overview of how the word is formed, because there are people who try to misrepresent what that word means, the word atheism and atheist. So it is standard. It is the absence of belief in deities. There's and if people call it a lack of belief in deities, I have a bit of an objection to calling it a lack, because lack kind of implies that there should be something there, but it's missing. An absence is neutral on that. So that's why I choose to use the word absence instead of lack. But what I would say with atheism, because we don't have any position on this either way, we're really entirely free of all that kind of stuff. Freedom is an intrinsic part of being an atheist. You are free to not have to take a position on these things, whether a deity exists or not. So you don't have that burden in your life, and this freedom is wonderful. Because I was explaining this to somebody a few months, about a year and a half ago, actually, and they were trying to clarify this because they had just left a religion, and they were under the impression that they had to take the opposite position. So we went into the bifurcation fallacy, and because there's part in the Bible that says you either are with God or you're against him. There's no other option, and that's a bifurcation or a false dilemma fallacy. So, and the thing is, no, you don't have to take either position. You can just be completely free of it all. And then the guy came back to me after the next day and said, wow, I really like this freedom. I love this. This is the way to go. And he was so happy with that, because he felt like now he's finally got some peace in his life. So I do think that atheism does equate to that freedom and that kind of peacefulness that people can have in their life. And it helps people to live more honestly with themselves, because they don't have to take a position they don't want to take. So,
excellent. While we've still got the attention of a reasonable amount of people, a reasonably high or relatively high amount of people.
Oh, hi everyone.
I just wanted to just before everyone starts to leave, I just want to throw everyone else in the direction of other podcasts on the channel, because I don't generally promote as much, and I got told off recently for not being a whore concerning my promotion of the yeah. So every guest I've had so far on the channel: David Fitzgerald, Jay Gunn, David Tamayo, presidential candidate Zoltan Istvan. I think he's going to stand in this 2020 election for America as well. Dan Barker, Aaron Ra, Alex O'Connor, a.k.a. Cosmic Skeptic, Wanda Brooks, Richard Carrier, Neil the 604 Atheist, Objectively Dan, Godless Cranium, Mandisa Latifa Thomas, Daryl Ray, Hemant Mehta, Lloyd Evans, Jack Dart from the Bollocks to Brexit campaign, Prophet Zod, Not Jar Witness, Bible Belt Atheist, Andrew Jasko, No Illusions, Mrs. Snarky, Bemilzebub, Prophet Zod again, Evans Murphy, Not Jar Witness again, Cyrus the Skeptic, Shannon Q, Frustrated Atheist, Sarah K, Carl Curtis from the Non Sequitur Show, Godless Aussie, Godless Cranium, Bad Tempered Badger, Insects Are Cool, Altimus Brain Sample, Jim Majors, Phil Ferguson doing financial advice, Frank Wolf from the Geek Room, Topic Thunder, and now Randolf Richardson. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. The only thing I have left to say is a couple of things. Everyone buy this album. It's very, very good. It's No Geography by the Chemical Brothers. It is out today, and just give me some feedback on the new artwork as well in the comments. I'll be rolling out the rest of it throughout the channel over the course of the weekend. Randolph, thank you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
Excellent. Maybe we're going to get Godless Engineer at the weekend. If not, we've got Ali Jackson coming next week from Atheist Republic.
I look forward to those.
Awesome. I'm going to check out. I'll see you in the lobby.